Welcome to my top 25 college football teams. Let's just go right into it. So, I kind of did this really fast and I couldn't figure out how to make the fade-ins work. So, I'll just do this and we'll talk about them individually. At number 1, obviously, I have Georgia. I saw a YouTube thumbnail that said Georgia is in their own league, and I was like, that is the perfect description of what Georgia is right now at home. I still think Georgia is a capable team of losing. They just have to be on the road. I mean, really, Tennessee, they did not play good at all for the number 1 team at the time. They did not play good at all at Georgia. And I think mainly that is because they were at Georgia. And, dude, there was a lot of Georgia fans there. Like, there was a lot of noise. I was honestly surprised that there were so many. I know Georgia's like a football school and they're a good football team and whatnot, but, like, dude, that was kind of crazy. And I don't know, there isn't really much else to say about that other than Georgia really showed what their defense is capable of doing. And they are definitely the number 1 team. Number 2, I have Michigan. Michigan was down at halftime against the Rutgers, but then honestly, like being down at halftime and dropping 42 unanswered points. I think it was 42. No, it was like the final score was 52, so it was somewhere around the 40s. That's a little difficult to do for any team at all. It takes some real skill to do that. Now, something I've noticed about Michigan is that they always struggle in the first half, but in the second half, they are just dominant. I don't know if they have like a really motivational speaker for halftime, but like they are very good in the second half. And I think that is what has kind of tilted my opinion on this Michigan team is that the first half, they always look terrible. And then in the second half, they look like really good. And I'm kind of seeing that now. And I'm wondering like maybe Michigan has a shot at upsetting Ohio State at Ohio State. Who knows? Number 3, I have TCU. TCU deserves this spot. I think especially after the way Ohio State played. And TCU, I mean, they won by 10 points, but they could have won by more. They were just draining the clock. And I think they were even down at a point, right? And they just went unanswered. They literally just... I think they were down like 24. No, they were down 17-13. And then, yeah, they just went unanswered. Texas Tech scored a touchdown with a minute 46 seconds left to make it a 10-point game. TCU kind of just shut them out in the second half. So, and I mean, really, Texas Tech has been a pretty good team overall. They got crushed by Baylor, but they beat Texas. So, like, I don't know, but right now I'm going to give them their glory at number 3 because next week they're on the road at Texas, and that's going to be a very hard game for TCU. I don't know if they'll be able to do it. I'm going to be real. Texas favored by 7. Don't know if they're going to be able to do it, but I'll give them their glory, their light now. Hopefully they win because I want to see TCU go all the way. Oh, nice. Number 4, Ohio State. I have them here strictly because of how bad they played. I get it was windy and whatever, but like, dude, they were down in the third quarter. They had to barely like walk out of Northwestern with their pants down. That does not look like a top 2 team to me. That looks like you're up here because you're undefeated and that's it. Clemson. So I don't know. I put them here. And at number 5, I have Oregon. I mean, feel like Oregon should just keep moving up. They killed Colorado. Colorado's not a good team, but they killed them. And I don't think Oregon's getting all the disrespect for getting killed at Georgia. And I get it. That is a terrible loss. But first off, Bo Nix was brand new to the team. First ever game, and it's at the returning national championship team at the national championship team's home field. Like, okay. That's a very difficult game to play, as well as they also had a brand new head coach. So it's like Oregon was literally in pieces at the time. Or no, they were like standing on a bridge with a loose rope holding on to the whole thing. And then Georgia was just like this 300-pound sumo wrestler who just at came in at full speed and just jumped onto it, broke it down. And ever since then, they've just rebuilt this bridge to full capacity. I mean, seriously, there was times where, like, we didn't know. Like, Oregon got killed by Georgia. They dropped off the ranking. They killed Eastern Washington. Then they beat BYU at home. BYU, we know, isn't that good of a team. Then they came back. This was a game that I surely thought, I was like, oh, Oregon sucks. Oregon's a bad team. And they managed to put 29 points to their name to bring the game back from the dead against Washington State. And then they beat Stanford pretty good at home. Let's see. Yeah, they beat Stanford pretty good at home. 515 total yards. Then they beat U of A on the road pretty good. And then they beat their hardest opponent yet, UCLA. Nice burp. UCLA at home. So at home was a complete different game. I thought UCLA would win that game, but Oregon shut them out pretty much. I think the game was actually like 45-22. It was 45-23 at a time. So yeah, they shut them out. Then they beat the crap out of Cal at Cal, and then they killed Colorado. Oregon has to play Washington at Oregon. Then they have to play Utah at Oregon. And then I'd say their hardest game would be at Oregon State. But Oregon State since then has started to look worse and worse. So I don't really know, man. I think Oregon can win this out, go to the Pac-12 championship and win. And as long as Georgia remains number one, actually, I don't even know if it matters at that point. I think Oregon will get in. Even if Georgia drops out, I think Oregon will get in. If Georgia somehow did drop out. And I have them above Tennessee because Tennessee just did not look good against Georgia. I mean, yes, Georgia is so good, but you can't get shut out like that, really, as a top 5 team. That just doesn't seem reasonable to me. So I put Oregon ahead of them, even though, of course, they would never do that to Oregon. They would never give that to Oregon, and they would never do that to an SEC team. So that's just the only difference there. LSU beat Alabama in a crazy game. I can't believe Jayden Daniels was ASU's quarterback at a time. Just ridiculous. And they won, so I put them here where ESPN has them because I think that is actually a rightful spot. The crazy thing to me is that LSU's now number 7. And I have Tennessee at number 6. Tennessee's one spot above LSU. And Tennessee killed LSU. That is the gap right there. That is the gap between primetime teams and then the rest of the top 25. I think Tennessee could kill UCLA, USC. They obviously couldn't kill Alabama. I still think Alabama is still a very good team, but they just took that loss, so they're going to have to build back and hope that LSU loses another game so they have a shot at the SEC championship. But then I have UCLA ahead of USC, even though UCLA really struggled with ASU, winning by 14 points in a 50-36. I mean, they didn't really struggle. They had literally 400 yards of rushing, but ASU also had 468 yards of offense. So it's like it was a shootout. There wasn't a whole lot of defense by either team. And I have UCLA over USC, however, because USC struggled more with Cal at home than UCLA struggled with ASU on the road. That's the difference there. And UCLA had more turnovers. Like, USC just kind of was playing like shit. They played worse than UCLA did, so I just gave UCLA the benefit of the doubt. We have Alabama at number 10 because Alabama lost to LSU. I still think they should be above all of these teams except for LSU and Tennessee. I think they should be above these two teams. But, we have to put them down here for the time being. Ole Miss, number 11, because Ole Miss had a bye week. I have Utah above Clemson. On the ESPN, it's flipped, but I have Utah above them. Because Utah doesn't really deserve to move a spot down because here comes Clemson. Utah has really been solid. I mean, they lost at the last second to Florida. to a sad interception. And then they've won out. And then they lost to UCLA at UCLA. That was just a bad game. Utah had more turnovers, which could have led to it. And ultimately, both teams played the same. Utah was 0 for 2 on fourth down conversions, and they were 7 for 13 on third down efficiency, whereas UCLA didn't have near as many third downs. They had 9, and they were 5 for 9, and they only went for the fourth down once. So, that's all the difference that there was in this game. It was literally a 10-point difference the whole time, but then Utah bounced back after dropping down to number 20 and beat USC at home to, honestly, I'd say a pretty crazy comeback. They were down 14-0. Then they were down 21-7. It was literally a 14-point game the whole time until they barely scored a touchdown at the end of the second quarter. Then they got the ball, and I assume they got the ball and scored. Then USC scored. Then they tied it, and then USC gave them the lead, and they made a risky play going for the 2-point conversion after the touchdown to win it. So really, they came out from behind against that team and beat them. And yes, USC I think is a little overrated, but it is still impressive that Utah was able to come out from behind and win that. Then they really struggled against Washington State, but it's at Washington State, and pretty much Utah had the lead the whole time. I'm pretty sure they were up 21-7. Yeah, they were up 21-7 at the end of the third quarter. They just didn't really do anything but play defense. Clemson, on the other hand, the reason why I have Utah above Clemson is because Clemson just got shut out by Notre Dame, the only team that isn't in their conference. Shut them out. Or 3 of their 9 teams. I actually think 4 of they play 4 non-conference games, I believe. 1, 2, 3. No, yeah, 4. They play South Carolina at the end of the season. So they play 4 non-conference games. Clemson, one of their 4 non-conference teams, we haven't seen the 4th one play him yet, but one of the 4 killed him. What does that say about the ACC? To me, it says they're overrated as shit. So I put Clemson here. I don't think Utah should lose a spot because Clemson comes crashing down. That just feels shitty. Utah moved down a spot to give Clemson the number 12 spot. After Utah shut U of A out, I think that's kind of screwed. Clemson was the team that lost. Utah wasn't. But anyways, on to Penn State. Penn State goes up after killing Indiana. Deserved. North Carolina goes up after beating Virginia. Virginia made a final stance at the end, but North Carolina, 1 was up 31-21. And 2, they were on the goal line, but they needed. So the score looks a lot closer than it actually should have been. Number 16, Tulane. They beat Tulsa. I was impressed for that win because I thought they were going to lose all their rep, but they won with ease on the road too. So Tulane should just keep moving up. I have Texas over NC State. Because Texas really impressed the world by beating Kansas State at Kansas State. That's a tough game to win, and they did it. Then I have Liberty here because Liberty beat an SEC team at Arkansas. That's impressive. NC State I have at number 19 because 1, I think they're overrated, and 2, they beat Wake Forest at home by 9 points, and Wake Forest had 3 turnovers. To me, they should not get a whole lot of clout for that. They should still be down. They were number 22 before. I think they should barely move up anything. Or were they? They went up 4 spots. Or were they the number 21 team and Wake Forest was the number 22? I don't remember. But yeah, I don't remember. But anyways, I have them here. Illinois. I have Illinois above Notre Dame because Illinois lost to Michigan State in a sad game. But nonetheless, there's still 2 losses. And Notre Dame beat Clemson. But we know Clemson's overrated, or at least I think so. So I'm just using human brain. I'm going to put Illinois above Notre Dame. Number 21, I have Notre Dame because, they beat Clemson. Number 22, I have UCF. They should keep climbing as long as they keep winning. At 23, I also have Kansas State, as ESPN does, down 10 places. Loss against Texas at home does not look good for you. It was looking really good for Kansas State after they killed Oklahoma State, but I did not know that Oklahoma State's quarterback was out, and that's why they're losing games. But nonetheless, they still lost, so they should go down. Washington is now ranked after beating Oregon State. I think that's well-deserved. They should take their spot, especially being a 2-loss team. And Florida State, number 25, I think that's also well-deserved. They killed Miami at Miami. Even though we know Miami is a terrible team, that's still impressive to absolutely slaughter a team like that at the other team's home field. And we also got to remember, Florida State is one of LSU's only losses. So that is my top 25. I kind of speed ran through that, realized how much time I was taking. And yeah, that's my top 25. Adios.